everyone, how's it going? ClaytonNerdyTrailer.com. Today we'll be taking a look at, and I'll walk you through how to install the CURT Underbed OEM-Style Gooseneck Hitch on a 2020 Chevrolet 2500. You might be looking to get a gooseneck hitch to tow a trailer, a camper, or anything like that, and this is a really good kit. I really like it, as the ball is really easy to take out. All you gotta do is twist this around, kind of wiggle it, and it comes right out. And then our safety loops are sprung down, so it looks nice in the bed of our truck. This is a super easy kit to install. There's not a whole lot of drilling. Our hitch is going to be constructed out of steel. It has a really nice black powder coat finish, and that's going to help resist rust and corrosion over time. You don't see much of it, but I promise it's protected underneath our truck bed. As far as our weight capacities are concerned, the gross towing weight is 32,500 pounds. Keep in mind that's the weight of the trailer and the load included. And our vertical load limit is going to be 8,125 pounds. So that's the weight pushing straight down on our hitch. And to get this thing installed, it's really not bad. Like I said, there's no drilling other than the holes in the bed. It mounts up super simple, and you can definitely do it at home in your driveway. Speaking of installation, I'll show you how to get it installed now. To begin our installation, we're going to remove our spare tire. Our directions tell us we don't have to, but I highly recommend it just for a little bit more extra room. After you get your spare tire removed, we'll go ahead and remove our heat shields. You're just going to use a 13mm socket. You repeat that process for our heat shield located right above our exhaust. With our heat shields removed, we now need to take down this bracket that holds up our wiring. That's going to give us just a little bit more clearance when we're installing all of our brackets. So we're actually going to be removing this bolt and this bolt here. This is going to use that 10mm socket. That should give us just enough room to get everything installed. If you're having trouble getting this wiring harness out of the way to have enough room, you can go ahead and remove this bracket. You're going to use a T30 Torx bit on these bolts on top. As you can see, I already have one almost all the way out, but there is going to be 2 bolts. Now we can go ahead and kind of bend that bracket out of the way. We are going to have to lower down our exhaust just to get a little bit more clearance. We're going to grab a strap, put it through a hole in the frame rail here, run it along to the other side, and do the same thing. We'll go ahead, tighten that down, and then we can remove our rubber isolators. Now we're ready to install our bracket. As you can see, we had to bend our heat shield back a little bit. That'll give us just enough clearance to get this in there. I do suggest starting with the driver's side. That way you have a little bit more room to work to get it around our fuel tank. Once you get it kind of set up here, you'll have to shake it around and move it. Just get it all in position to where it'll line up correctly. You do want to make sure that you have your carriage bolts installed before you put these brackets in. It's going to be hard to work around the bed and this bracket to get those bolts in. Now we can go ahead and slide our passenger side into place. Now with our carriage bolts dropped through, we're ready to lift our centerpiece up into place. You do want to make sure to put this locator on there first. That's going to help us locate where to drill our hole later. I do suggest grabbing an extra set of hands to help us lift our centerpiece up into place, because it is kind of hard to work around our axle. Now we'll go ahead and lift this into place. We have one hex nut started on each side. I'm going to go ahead and add our other bolt to each side. Once I get those on, I'm going to leave them loosely installed until we get the rest of our hardware in. Our next step is going to be to loosely install our carriage bolts. For now, we're just going to slide these through our hitch and our brackets. You might have to lift up on your hitch to get it to seat correctly. We'll have the 4 on this side and the 3 on this side. After we get all those carriage bolts set in place, we'll come back and add our hex nuts. We do want to install everything loosely, make sure it all aligns properly, and then we'll come back and tighten it all down later. There is going to be 7 hex nuts. Next, we're going to take out our wheel well liners. It's going to be a lot easier to get to our frame rail with these out. We are going to use a T15 torque spit. All you have to simply do is pull your wheel well liner out. There's going to be one more push pin up here. It's going to thread off. And then we can go ahead, take these out, and set it off to the side. You're going to want to do this on both sides. Here on our driver's side, I went ahead and put this bracket on. I'll show you how to do it on the passenger side, but this is what the driver's side is going to look like near complete. We have all of our hardware loosely installed. We did use that fish wire on this one. We did a reverse fish wire, and I'll show you how to do that on the passenger side. I wanted to go ahead and get these 2 bolts started to keep our plate from sliding around. Now we can go ahead over to the passenger side, and I'll show you how to get it installed. On the passenger side, we can go ahead and hold up our outer frame bracket. We want to make sure that these holes line up with those weld nuts, and that this bottom hole down here lines up with that hole in our frame rail. We're going to reverse fish wire our spacer block and bolt there, and then add our hardware and our bracket to the inside. To do a reverse fish wire, we're going to take our coiled end, slide our spacer block on, then we can thread on our carriage bolt provided in the kit. Then we're going to go to that hole, insert the bolt, push in the spacer block, and pull it all through. So we can slide that carriage bolt in, add our spacer block, then come back and pull everything through. I'm going to go ahead and thread this through the hole in our bracket, and then we can get our other hardware for the back and get this thing supporting itself. We can go ahead and add our long carriage bolt to this side of our bracket, slide on our tube, and we will take our bracket, kind of push it up into place. Pull that carriage bolt through, and then we can go ahead and put our bracket on our other side. And if you're having trouble holding it and getting your bracket on the other side, you can take your hex nut, thread it onto this front bolt, hand tight, and then the bracket will hold itself up and we'll still have room to adjust it. And before we get that bracket put on the other side, we are going to need to get another long carriage bolt and our long tube here. We'll slide this through, add the tube, and now when we put that other bracket on, it'll be able to hold itself up. Now that we have all of our hardware loosely installed, we'll grab our hex bolt, put on our lock washer and then a flat washer, and we'll get the 4 bolts started on the passenger side, and then once those are hand tight, we'll go ahead and move over to the driver's side and get that one finished up. So we're going to grab a 24mm socket. I went ahead and stuck a little paper towel in there just to hold that bolt, that way you don't have to worry about it falling off. You can go ahead, kind of get this one started. If it's not wanting to thread, you can always go and clean it out, because it is probably filled with paint. So we'll just kind of push up, get it started, and we'll repeat that process for this bolt as well. Now we have all of our hardware loosely installed. I did want to come back, take this off, and install our bracket. I just kind of waited to do this, that way we'd have a little bit more play. So now I can go ahead and get this bracket installed. We're just going to take the hardware off, and then you'll have to lift up and push the hardware in. I now have all of our hardware completely tightened down. It's time to go in and torque it down now. And if you read your instructions, there's a certain sequence to torque down your hardware, and all those torque specs and order will be listed in your instructions. Now we have all of our hardware torqued down, so we're finally ready to drill our hole. Remember, we had that blue template inside of our gooseneck ball mount. We're going to go ahead, drill that out, and then we'll drill out our safety loopholes. Then we're going to grab a long drill bit, find our hole, and drill very slowly. You want to make sure that your drill bit is straight. Now we need to go ahead and make our markings to drill our pilot holes for our safety loops. I'm just going to take a drill bit the same size as the hole, make a dent, come back and drill a pilot hole, and then I'll come up and drill everything through the top. You repeat that process for our other 3 holes. Now on the top of our truck bed, we can go ahead and finish drilling out our pilot holes. So we have our first 2 holes drilled. We want to take our safety loops and make sure that those fit. In this case they do, so we know we're good. Now we can go ahead and hit this with some clear coat. Want to make sure to kind of get a few angles. This will just prevent any rust over time. You want to repeat that same process for these 2 holes over here. Alright, now we're ready to cut our center hole. I do suggest grabbing a piece of wood and cutting a hole in it with your hole saw, and then you can use it as a guide, and that'll help us keep from kind of skipping around, and we can make sure we get a clean cut. So you do want to get that lined up, and then we can stand on the other side. Then you want to start kind of slowly, and just let the saw do the work. Now we're going to go ahead and file it all down. Just make sure we have a nice clean edge. After hitting it with some clear coat to prevent any rust, we can go ahead and mount up our safety loops. We can go ahead, drop our loops in from the top, and then we'll add our hardware from the bottom. Now to set up our safety loops, we will add a washer, our spring, another washer, and then a hex nut provided. This can be kind of tough as the spring wants to push our hardware away from us. We'll repeat that process for this one, and then these 2, and then we'll come back and tighten them down. We're going to go ahead and tighten these down. We want to tighten it up to where the bottom of that pin is flush with the bottom of our nut. With our bolts tightened down, we can go ahead, reinstall our fender liners, rehang our exhaust, get everything tightened back up, put it in this heat shield, and then we can put our ball in. We're going to want to pull up on this tab and turn it, drop the ball in, we're ready to hit the road. That's going to do it for a look at and installation of a CURT Underbed Gooseneck Hitch on a 2020 Chevrolet 2500 HD.